I think there's something up with Company 7. First JuliusH was seemingly wiped from reality, then Mitchell hasn't showed up at work for 2 days, and last, I see JuliusH connected to the enlightened being. Today, I searched the company records to find more information about Mitchell. The file simply says deleted and requires level 8 card if I want to see the file. I tried searching up cases he's been on, but they seem to all be classified. I asked a few people what happened, and something isn't quite right. Hey, I would begin. Have you seen Mitchell Valaroos around?
Oh yeah, Mitchell,
they would reply.
He told me that.
And then they would just stop. Everyone got this blank look on their face, and their eyes sort of went black for a second. Then they would just walk away as if nothing had happened. I tried asking them after this event occurred, but it only yielded the same results. Next, I searched for more information connected to the schools. It would connect to my mission today, investigating strange sightings of a cult near an abandoned village. Nenioweik village was its name. In the early 1900s, a mine had been opened near Nenioweik. A cave system had been discovered, and it was filled with gold, crystals, and something else. After a month of the mine's opening, a group of explorers discovered bodies in the caves. They were hung upside down from the ceiling, and in this cocoon made of black, stringy goo. According to the expedition logs, the team discovered worm-like creatures inside the bodies. Later that day, 3 people on the team went missing, and there were later reports of something pretending to be humans. The drawing of the creatures seemed exactly like the creatures I encountered in my second entry. Someone clearly wanted me to connect the dots. The chances of me getting connecting missions were impossible. I decided I needed to uncover who wanted me to know about this, and why. There was one more thing about the cave system that I found strange. The expedition team entered in 1915, and they went missing for 10 years. In 1925, they left the cave, looking exactly as they did in 1915. When asked, the survivors of the team told reporters that they had only been inside the cave for a week. Everyone was left confused, and the caves were restricted. In 1916, a strange group called the Angel Institute bought the caves and built a complex of buildings for a society of researchers to live in. The original residents of Nenioweik weren't allowed to enter the research complex, and the Angel Institute researchers weren't allowed to talk to the civilians. What the Angel Institute researched wasn't revealed to the public, but then everyone associated with the research complex mysteriously vanished. A year later, a team led by the mayor of Nenioweik entered the research complex, which had by then been taken over by strange plants never seen before. 6 people entered. Only 2 came out. Something had attacked them inside. Something they claimed was demonic. The description told me it was something similar to the creature that was called the Enlightened. Yet the one they encountered had a plethora of eyes, and if the reports are to be believed, covered with bioluminescent tentacles all over its body. Fortunately for me, the survivors had recovered a research paper. The contents were wet, and the ink smeared, but there was a drawing I was able to see properly. A drawing of 6 different skulls. A year after the mayor had stolen the papers, everyone in the village simply disappeared. There were reports of strange lights flickering in the night sky just days before the disappearance, and more strangely, a description of a woman and a group that seemed exactly like JuliusH and the people I'd seen in the woods yesterday. There was one clue from the disappearance that struck me as unusual. There was a large monolith in the centre of the village, and by witness reports, it had magically appeared there one day. A day after the villagers disappeared, a sentence made up of an unknown language appeared on the monolith. It couldn't be translated, but I ran the photo of the symbols through Company 7's algorithm, and it found that the symbols had been spotted somewhere else. It had been spotted in Patagonia, near what legend told of an underground city inside a mountain. The legend told of a strange, ancient civilization with long limbs, thin, translucent bodies, and elongated necks and heads. They were called the Kokeu. I decided I needed to solve this mystery, strange informant or not. I selected my mission to investigate the village, and I was sent on a plane. Hours later, I jumped out and parachuted my way to the village, as it was high in the mountains, and the roads had isolated the abandoned village due to a landslide. The air was fresh in the village, and it was a nice change in surroundings. Company 7's facility can sometimes be stuffy. The first thing I noticed about the village was the lack of everything. I had entered a house to find nothing inside. It was just a house with rooms, yet there were no beds, no toys, just nothing. It was as if whoever had lived there disappeared with all their belongings with them. I checked the other houses, and they were exactly the same. There was also a strange odour to the area. As I got closer to the centre of the village, it became apparent it was coming from the massive black monolith in the centre of it. The texture of the monolith was exactly the same as the black gate. I tried to take a few photos, but they all came out distorted. However, later that day, I took the photos to a friend to enhance them, and we found something odd. The photo had a slight reflection, mirrored by the monolith. It was humanoid, and it seemed like a thin, pale man with a fedora. I finished exploring the village, which didn't offer up any further clues to its disappearance, and headed towards the research complex. I entered the largest and tallest building. As soon as I entered, I saw that it was covered in a strange blue moss that seemed to glow in the dark. Pink and yellow vines sprawled across the place, making it seem more swamp than a lab. I found a map, and it told me of a restricted zone in the topmost floor of the building. I reasoned that this would be where I would find clues, and made the journey there. As soon as I entered, I came face to face with rows and rows of containers filled with a murky black liquid. What shocked me most was that inside, what I saw was the creature I had encountered in my second entry. The strange, spindly thing with the Venus flytrap head. Each row seemed to be studying a different growth cycle of the animal. The one furthest from me had a small squid bug-like parasite. Next was more like octopus-like, with a smaller body and long tentacles. Third seemed to be more like the real thing I had encountered before, but smaller and more snake-like. The last one was exactly as I had encountered, and up close, it looked terrifying. "Shadowpath Cloning Program," I murmured, reading the title of a paper I found on the floor. The rest of the paper was unreadable due to it being soaked in water. I found a letter stapled to a wall and read it. In our last update, it read, "We mentioned the origins of the Shadowpath were in a cave system near Nenioweik village. These caves have some sort of temporal effect on the world. Time has problems there. We brought a clock to the area, and it slowed down. At first, we thought the caves had caused some sort of magnetic effect on our devices, but when we brought mice there, we found that their bodies seemed to slow down, yet remain perfectly healthy. We sent a monkey inside a few days ago. When it came back out, it had grown 5 years older. Inside the monkey, we found a parasite, the first stage of what we have now been calling the Shadowpath. That's all for now." Another letter was behind it, and I read that one as well. "We are proud to announce that we have developed suits that will allow the effects of the cave to pass over us. We have discovered a strange temple inside. An archaeological team was sent inside, and we recovered murals depicting some sort of ancient beings. The Angel Institute believes this may be something to do with the Kokeu people. Furthermore, we have discovered 3 not quite humanoid skulls inside the cave, and they seem to connect with a unique crystal found inside the caves. We are sending these skulls back to home base. I personally suggest we separate those skulls because If what a mural inside the temple is correct, there are 6 schools in total that, when placed together in the temple, will cause something I do not wish to find out. I was about to read the next letter when out of the corner of my eye, I saw a group of people walking into the village. With my binoculars, I spotted JuliusH and the people with her, same as before. They arrived at the monolith, and I saw JuliusH raise a skull to the monolith. It was a deep shade of blue, and covered in what seemed to be bony tentacles. Then, something came out of the monolith. A thin, translucent humanoid with an elongated neck and head, exactly the same creature, called the Enlightened. It was covered head to toe with tentacles, and it was dripping wet. It turned its head, then pointed a long, wet finger to me. Behind me, I heard something break. The sound of water washing away, the sound of something awakening, and a hiss of hunger. I turned to see the largest of the shadow paths climb out of its container, its hooked tentacles reaching for solidarity, its eyeless flytrap head open, showing rows and rows of daggers. Kieran Gray. To be continued. Since the post got deleted earlier, I decided to add some extra sneak peeks from my personal notes. I have heard of something in the organisation called Haven while researching these cases. Whenever a case has pictures of something, I've always spotted the letters HAVEN in some obscure corner. I put the name into the company database earlier, and this is what I got. Haven, an old organisation bent on killing monsters and bringing a heavenly god of light into the world to wipe out the unworthy. In the 1900s, they were stopped by Company 7 and the Classified Corporation and sealed away into objects. I also found a couple of notes from an interview from some other organisation. See, what strikes me as odd is that these notes all have a deer head watermark, which looked exactly like the people who worked with me on my second entry. Could this heavenly god of light be what would happen if the schools were put together? However, based on these notes, I can tell that this classified corporation and the deer head symbol wearing people are different, because the deer people mentioned something about the corporation helping them out. Could this be the Angel Institute? Or is it some branch of Company 7 I've never heard of? Kieran Gray.